Welcome, everyone, to Leading a Remote Team.
We're so glad you've joined us today to see if managing a remote team is truly a mission impossible.
I'm Ginger Cookson, VP of Design, and I've been with Kimiko Designs for 23 years as of about today. My technical intelligence is being the human form of Gorilla Glue. I get all the pieces moving and functioning together, filling in the cracks to create a cohesive group that is even more valuable than the parts by themselves.
And I'm Lisa Haugen, Director of Spec Services, and I've been with Kimiko Designs for about 2.5 years. My technical intelligence is being the ultimate resource for guiding others to better solutions, improving efficiencies, and forming personal connections. Since we work for a company who is 100% remote and has been for most of its 24 years, we want to share with you what we've learned and implemented to help make managing a remote team mission possible.
So today, we're going to show you how to assemble your remote managing toolkit. You'll learn not just how to manage someone remotely, but how to thrive doing it. We'll address how to be clear when communicating and setting expectations for your remote workers, how to leverage and manage technology and resources in a remote scenario, how to track productivity in your remote workers, and see if they can roll with the punches in this ever changing furniture world. Sometimes our furniture world can be so dramatic, we're thinking about creating a new sitcom called As the Chair Turns. And then we'll talk about how to be more people centered and consider the needs of your remote workers. And last, but definitely not least, we'll discuss how to make sure that everyone wins. So, assignment number 1, communication and expectations. Communication is the one thing that is most important in any relationship, but especially a remote one. Though we can be pretty good at it sometimes, we are not mind readers. We've also gotten pretty good at reading scratches on a napkin, but in the end, it can all come down to garbage in, garbage out. This also goes for setting expectations. If expectations are not clearly set, how can anyone meet your expectations, much less try to exceed them? Our mission today is to get you thinking about all the things and all the people. Okay, let's talk communication. There are lots of things to consider. Transparent communication is paramount in any company. You want everyone to stay informed and in the know. So, when thinking about communicating with a remote team member, the theme has to be inclusion. Make sure to include your remote workers in anything that's going on in the office. If there are things that you would normally post physically somewhere in the office, make sure there's also an electronic version, or maybe just switch to an electronic version altogether. As an example, Microsoft Teams has a whiteboard feature you can use to post things electronically and use it like a bulletin board. You could have an office hours policy where you have certain times each day that you're available for Teams calls or chats. I would even block it out on your calendar like you would a meeting. Another way to make sure that you know how best to communicate with each other is to have everyone on your team share their contact methods in order of preference, like the graphics shown on the slide. You can see that employee X prefers Teams chat first, then email, then phone. And here is yet another way to have everyone's preferred communication method in one place. Create a communication preferences spreadsheet. We've recently implemented this at Kimiko, and it's been very helpful when we're trying to reach someone, especially because we are all remote. We have a few generations and a few different personalities represented in our company, as I'm sure you do as well. So, this helps us know the most effective way to communicate with everyone. I think people appreciate being asked what their preferences are, and they especially like when others make accommodations for their preferences. It's little details like that that speak volumes and show people that they are being seen and heard. Speaking of different generations and communication styles, one style does not fit all. From boomers all the way to Gen Z, there's a vast difference in communication style.
Some examples of the generational communication styles would be boomers. They prefer to walk over and talk face to face, especially after sending you an email. Gen X, they prefer phone calls or emails. Millennials prefer emails or text messages. And Gen Z, they prefer text messages or app-based messaging.
As you have most likely experienced, different personalities communicate differently too. Just think about the two most polar opposite people in our industry: salespeople and designers. At Kimiko, one tool we use when working together is our disc profiles. This profile tells us the intricacies of our communication styles. And when we work in various teams for projects, we often refer back to our disc profiles so we know how best to communicate with each team member. Having that knowledge helps us tailor our communication by person, which then helps us be better teammates and have stronger teams. Thoughtful, tailored communication, it does take time, so make sure that you allow time for it in your schedule. Now, let's talk about expectations. Expectations of all kinds have to be set and then monitored. If not, it's like having someone build an IKEA desk without instructions. Some people would figure it out on their own, but the majority would struggle and end up missing things and start yelling obscenities and probably give up. I know a lot of dealerships like to let people figure things out on their own, otherwise known as throwing them in the deep end. But I encourage you to put some extra processes in place when it comes to remote workers. It will definitely pay off in the end. Inform your remote workers on how you want them to communicate with you, their team, and especially their clients. And then monitor their emails for a while just to make sure that they are meeting your expectations. Remember, it's not only about how they're communicating, but it's also about when they're communicating. You want to let the people who you're communicating with know that you're all over it and that you're taking care of them. So a response to them needs to be timely. Set the expectation of what the communication rule of thumb is, and then monitor and coach. In addition, you also have to take the time to ensure that the tasks you are giving are clear and that others understand what is expected of them. Also, be an active listener with your remote workers. Sometimes that can mean listening to not only what they're saying, but also to what they're not saying. Try to listen more than you speak so you can better understand their needs.
Assignment number 2. Now that we've covered communication and expectations, let's discuss how to leverage and manage technology and resources in a remote scenario. Setting yourself up for success to work remotely is key. We have 3 main ingredients for your remote toolkit. First, technology. You'll need a computer powerful enough to handle the software. We recommend purchasing as much computer as your company can afford. Since technology changes so frequently, we suggest aiming higher than the standard CET minimum requirements and going with the CET minimum requirements for augmented reality or virtual reality. These requirements will provide more memory, more speed, and a better graphics card. Second, find a dedicated space with privacy. Treat this space as a true workspace and not as an afterthought. Yes, working from your dining room table can be done for short periods of time, but it's not quite as comfortable. And having a space where you do not have to put your work and tools away every day is super convenient. Third, ensure your worker has the proper ergonomic tools for their workspace. There's a lot to be said for an ergonomic chair. Maybe your company will allow them to borrow one. Also consider having an extra monitor, a camera for online meetings, a height adjustable table, noise canceling headphones. Will they need a printer or additional filing? Many companies have rules for bring your own devices, so understand what your company will provide them with versus what they may need to purchase on their own. Along with the technology, there are many apps you can use with remote working. Basic programs such as Microsoft Office Suite and Microsoft Teams. Design software such as CET, Project Spec 5, and the other one that shall not be named. PDF editors such as Adobe Acrobat Professional and Bluebeam Review. Online file access. Many of your companies may have a server or VPN access, but are remote workers able to access these easily without lag time? If not, you may want to consider Dropbox, WeTransfer, Microsoft OneDrive, or Microsoft SharePoint for file sharing. Meeting apps such as Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and WebEx. Messaging and communication apps such as Microsoft Teams and Slack. Project tracking apps such as Microsoft Planner, Monday, Trello, Core, and Smartsheet. And scheduling apps such as Monday, Trello, Squaretable, and Calendly. Keep in mind that maintenance needs to be done frequently for remote workers, just as in-house workers. As Ginger mentioned before, company announcements need to be done electronically, not just on a physical bulletin board. Be sure to not leave anyone out of the loop and be intentional about the information being put out. One of the most important technological aspects to working remotely has to do with connectivity. Be sure you have a strong internet connection and speed. As we all know, this can make all the difference in the world. Ensure your remote employee has good cell service. It's okay that it happens to all of us once in a while, but we wouldn't want that to happen every time. Consider boosting cell and Wi-Fi service with products like Google Home or Arrow. When we hire a new employee, we start with a few meetings. The first meeting is an onboarding meeting with Val, our operations manager. She sends out the employee handbook, goes over how we do timekeeping, and most importantly, how we get paid. The second is an onboarding meeting with their team lead. They show where files are saved, discuss how to save documents, review dealer standards, and discuss the Kimiko design process. After that, it's good for the team lead and remote worker to work on a project together so they understand how the dealer does things, meeting daily or several times a day to show them the process. The team lead involves them in emails and other communication with the dealer so they can learn how we word things. Expectations are set with standards, notes, and timeframes. Setting tasks and milestones for them to meet as they're going along is crucial. We recommend complete visibility with client communication. When onboarding a new or remote worker, we also recommend finding them a tech buddy. We understand that some of you have IT groups that help with the following, but they don't always know the ins and outs of what we do. They can help with the following: loading software and catalogs, software issues. It could even be a different person for each type of software you use. Connectivity issues. Who on your team has a knack for technology and can help with this? Designate an expert within each team for updates, reminders, and assistance. At Kimiko, we have a designer who is really great with technology and can be the middleman between our other designers and our IT group. She can help with many issues, but will be clear in when to go directly to our IT group. When onboarding new designers, I also provide a list of the CET extensions, accessories, and tools I want them to have, so that when they are ready to work, they have everything they need. So I'm sure you've felt this way about your technology at one point or another. And why does it have to happen at the most inopportune time? We have some statistics from Dell. Can you believe that having a bad technology experience can make you feel twice as stressed? And for my fellow introverts out there, it's almost 30% more stressful than being asked to sing a song in public. No, thank you. I know it's hard for a company to keep investing in new tech, but do they know that workers can achieve 37% more in a workday when they have newer technology with correct software and services? In addition, a bad tech experience can impede employee performance by more than 30%. That's like adding 2 extra days to your work week. No,
No.
thank you.
Yes, no, thank you. Absolutely. All right. Assignment number 3, productivity and flexibility. Now, I know one of the main conversations out there when considering remote workers is, how do I know if they're working when they're at home and they're not sitting in front of me? And if it hasn't crossed your mind, it's most likely crossed your dealer principal's mind. For someone who's been working remotely since the year 2000, which is forever and ever ago, I know that remote working is definitely not for everyone. So let's talk about some ways to monitor productivity for remote workers and also some ways to allow remote workers some flexibility. One of the best ways we've seen to help monitor productivity revolves around time management. Making sure everything is getting done in a timely manner is a skill that you have to learn. The first piece is estimating time, and it's usually something that you have to practice to perfect. It doesn't normally come naturally. If your dealership doesn't track time or bill for time, your designers should still know how to estimate time. That way, when salespeople or a client asks them when they can have something back, they can be fairly accurate in their response. And maybe it's not on the spot, but at least they'll be able to figure it out and respond back at some point. At Kimiko, we usually start with having designers estimate how long they think something will take, and then compare that with how long something actually took them to complete. Then they can start to look at why something took longer or why something took less time and make adjustments the next time they estimate. It's a continual process for quite a while, so they really have to be invested in it to make it work. This skill is important whether we're talking about an in house designer or a remote designer. When coaching a designer about estimating time, be sure to help them estimate when they're first starting out by giving them an idea of how long you think something should take. As you watch their progress in developing this skill, it also helps you gauge their pace so that you continue to understand which projects are best suited for their abilities. And remember, not everyone moves quickly, especially when they're new. I think a big piece of the remote worker puzzle is monitoring them to make sure you know what they're working on and what the quality and the timeliness are of their deliverables. It doesn't have to be that way forever. just until you know that they are understanding what's expected of them and they are fulfilling those expectations.
I'm sure we've all been pressured to get things done ASAP, but what does that mean? In this day and age of Amazon Prime, everyone expects things within 2 days. Can it be done? Sure. Will it be your best work ever? Probably not. And throw in typical day-to-day life struggles and random projects coming back on your plate, and you're in a real pinch. I'm sure many of you have seen versions of this triangle. You can only choose 2 of the circles since having all 3 doesn't exist, just like the unicorn in the center. It would be great to do a high quality design that's economical, but it will be time consuming to find furniture within the budget. Just as you could do a quick and low budget design, but it may not be the most attractive and cohesive design. You could also help your designers by walking them through each step of a project and help them prioritize what deliverables can be done in a short time frame.
Nice. Yeah, we're all looking for that unicorn. Uh, when setting expectations with salespeople or clients, you want to make sure that designers give themselves enough time to do a stellar job. Then, if they get finished early, even better. But on the flip side of that, there's often a very fine line between taking the time you need and taking too much time. So, again, it's something that needs to be monitored and coached to until you are confident that your designers can do it on their own. And last but not least, teach your designers to build in a little extra time as a buffer, like 10 to 20%, depending on the size of the job. There will always be things that they don't think about when they're estimating time, like communication, meetings, reaching out to reps to get vendor quotes, etc. So that buffer will help in that missing of those activities. Here is an example of a generic form that we've come up with for helping our designers estimate time. We use it kind of like you would an audit checklist. Ultimately, there would be a prompt for all the things in a typical project that you need to think about when estimating time. I'd also like to share with you some ways that we've seen our dealers do estimating. One of our dealers has a form that they use that has formulas that calculate a certain number of minutes per task for various numbers of stations. I think it's a really interesting idea for at least the systems part of a new project. Obviously, you'd need to alter that for reconfigs or more complex projects, but it could be a place to start. Then some of our dealers use percentages for design time and other things, like 1.5% of list for net design time cost and 3% of list for net installation cost. So a total of 4.5% of list for design time and installation. It's a really good way to get a ballpark cost. And then there's the old standby of an hour per station or office or area, depending on the complexity of the project and the deliverables required. Whatever your method, we recommend having all your designers hone their time estimating skill. Distractions. Let's think about all the distractions that happen in an office, like people coming by your desk to chat, salespeople dropping by to review or ask about a project, reps stopping in, etc. Now, think about how easy it is to get distracted when you're working at home. If your remote employees are easily distracted, it may be difficult for them to focus or stay on task when they're at home. Since Kimiko is a 100% remote company, we polled our team to see what tips they've come up with during their time at Kimiko for minimizing distractions. So if you have pets in your home office, keep extra toys at your desk for them to play with. Close the window shades so they can't see what's going on in the neighborhood. especially when you're on a call or doing a presentation. Have busy bones or treats handy to keep them occupied. Walk your dog at a set time during the day, maybe over a lunch break. If you have babies or children, set up your office in a room with a door. Let them know if the door is closed, it means do not interrupt. If you have babies, get to know their patterns and schedule your day around their schedule. If you have young children, set them up with Miss Rachel on YouTube. Or if you have older kids, schedule them for some online classes through a source like outschool.com. And for your phones, everyone's evil. Place your phone across the room so that you don't feel the need to check it so often. Also, get to know how you work best when you are the most focused and schedule your day around that. For example, we have a designer, Ashley, in our group who knows that she needs to do her most detailed and focused work in the morning when she's fresh, and then her less detailed work in the afternoon. So she tries to schedule her day around that. If you have a lot of background noise in your space, like maybe someone else is working at home in the same room as you, a good pair of noise canceling headphones work really well. And then if you crave background noise, maybe your space is too quiet, go work in a cafe or a co working space. But make sure to take those noise canceling headphones along with you.
As far as housework goes, keep the area in which you work clean and free from visual distractions. For off hours notifications and emails, make a conscious choice to set your notifications properly when you're not working. Schedule them when you're okay with them coming through. For emails, schedule time in your day or every few hours to go through a batch of emails so you're not constantly being pulled away from what you're focused on. And then for other thoughts that come up, keep a pen and paper handy to write your to-do list things down so you don't forget them. Once you write them down, just release them from your mind so you can focus. You maybe use a timer to do focus work for 30 to 60 minutes, and then celebrate your accomplishment with 10 to 15 minutes of stretching or maybe walking the dog. As far as multitasking goes, when working remotely, we have a tendency to answer emails and respond to chats, but try to avoid multitasking during calls and meetings to improve engagement.
For sure. According to Gallup, engaged employees feel a greater connection with their work and are thus more productive. Improved productivity leads to greater profitability. And what company doesn't want that? Engaged workers are 21% more profitable than those who are disengaged. Engaged workers also have greater job satisfaction and are less likely to leave their company. Reduced turnover rates mean reduced costs for recruiting, hiring, and training new hires. And the cost of replacing an employee can range from 1/2 to 2 times their annual salary. So engaged employees can save your company a lot of money. One of the ways to help engage employees is to have them set goals. And the remote worker is no different. Set goals or milestones with your remote workers according to what you're looking to get out of them. The milestones that you set for them will help you verify if they are productive and engaged in the way that they are meeting the milestones, or maybe in the way they're not meeting the milestones. As with anything, you'll want to monitor, coach, evaluate, and give feedback. So build time in your schedule to do this because it does take a good amount of time to do it well. You don't want this process to seem like an afterthought because you're rushing through to get to your next task. The ultimate goal is creating engaged, highly competent, happy workers. And here are some more statistics about employee engagement from team building. Whatever you do, the goal is to be people centered. Let your remote workers know that as much as possible, you are tailoring the work experience to their needs. They need to understand that you see and hear them and that you've got their back, even when they aren't sitting right next to you. It's all about building relationships. Being given the flexibility to work remotely is such a gift. So make sure that it's very clear where the boundaries are with your designers. Let them know what the expectations are regarding work hours. Is there any flexibility in this or not?
So we have a designer who prefers to get up at the crack of dawn and work until around noon. She and her husband have a 2-year-old son and have worked through their own schedule to take care of him throughout the day. This at first was a little difficult as many of us have meetings in the mornings and may not be able to respond until the afternoon. She was not available at those times. So first, we communicated her working hours to the fellow employees. Then she added her working hours into her email signature and a shared calendar. We also determined that if we needed to ask a question, we should text her, not email her. That way she can see it right away and respond at her earliest convenience. And many times, if she has enough of a heads up, she can arrange to be available some afternoons. It's a win-win for all.
Yes, it's fine. We had to keep tweaking, but it finally became a really great situation for everybody. As Lisa mentioned, we have a shared calendar to show when people are out for appointments or on vacation. And it's super helpful to know when someone is going to be out. We also have designers list a contact on their out of office message so that their clients know how to reach out to someone if they need something. Again, it's all about communication. People love knowing that you have their best interests at heart, as well as the company's. As long as someone isn't taking advantage of the situation, try to work in some flexibility for someone's schedule or workload as a perk or an incentive. Things like that go a long way and will build trust with your designers. And it could be what separates you from your competitors in your market. And as we say at Kimiko, think outside the cube.
We've reached assignment number 4. Where would you be without your employees? They're the ones getting all the things done. But what happens if they aren't engaged? We'll talk about how to be more people-centered and consider the needs of your remote workers. Not everyone is the same. It's important to consider each person's needs. Figure out their strengths and weaknesses. Play to their strengths, yet understand their weaknesses. What do they like doing? What do they not like doing? What are they good at? What are they interested in doing? Out of sight, out of mind. Encourage people to speak up. You won't necessarily know if something is wrong unless someone tells you. We recently had a designer reach out to us, letting us know she wasn't getting the hours she needed. Because she's quiet and reserved, it was difficult for her to speak up. But we listened. And now we've made a point to ensure she's getting the hours she wants and needs. She's happy, we're happy. And if another issue arises, she has the confidence in herself to speak up and trust that she will be heard, all due to open communication. Invest time in getting to know them. We do this in a few ways. We have one-on-one meetings with our team members to facilitate personal connections. We discuss work-specific items, but we also discuss what's going on in our lives. This is one of my favorite things, as it's laid back, and I find the time spent with them is incredibly rewarding on so many levels. We have stand-up meetings with the entire team 3 times a week. Sometimes we do fun activities to get to know each other, such as trivia games or sharing pics of our pets and families. We recently had a virtual baby shower for one of our designers, where we all designed a nursery using designwithfriends.com. and voted on our favorites. And boy, were they super cute.
It was lots of fun too.
Yes. And most importantly, support your team in a genuine and authentic way. And by the way, this applies to all employees, not just the remote ones. Now that we've discussed how to get to know your team, it's also important to understand who would make a great candidate for remote work. As you know, not everyone is cut out for remote work. People are attracted to it, but can they be productive in a remote environment? We've listed out a few key characteristics to understand who would be more fitted for this type of work. A person who craves in-person social interaction, lacks a lot of experience in the workplace, someone who's easily distracted, and someone who is organizationally challenged may not be an ideal candidate for remote work. On the other hand, someone who is great with heads down work, someone who is self-sufficient, someone who is self-motivated and good with time management would be a perfect candidate for remote work.
Yes, and they have to have 4 hands. Lots of hands.
It's important. It's important to understand that everyone is different, and it doesn't mean that the people on the previous slide would not be great at their jobs. It just means that they may not be very productive in a remote working environment. With time, experience, and structure, they could potentially transform into a good candidate for remote work. So you now have your remote candidates. What's next? People get uneasy without some sort of structure in place. Be sure to create a remote working structure, whether it be set hours, set communication, set expectations, and understand that there may need to be tweaks made. Most importantly, treat all workers, remote or not, equally. Yes, everyone has a different personality. Yes, some have different needs. There are always going to be exceptions to the rules, but if you're treating everyone fairly and equally, your team will excel. Remote workers need to feel they are part of a company and not isolated on their own little island. Make sure you're inviting them to lunch and learns, company parties, happy hours, and industry events. Encourage them to work with one another on projects, whether in or out of the office. Inclusion is key. According to a 2022 global study by Gartner, did you know that only 25% of remote or hybrid workers feel connected to their company's culture? That's a pretty low number if you ask me, and it also says a lot about company culture and how it affects employee engagement. However, according to Zippia, highly engaged employees are 87% less likely to leave a company, meaning that improving hybrid experience can improve retention. It's important to show up for work and show up for life. Giving time to both things makes you more engaged in both areas and can make for a more well-rounded life. Remote work can allow you to succeed in both. According to Gallup, when your culture is wrong, employees and customers leave. Above, you can see many positive outcomes when a company has a positive and strong company culture, and it doesn't just happen overnight. It takes work, transparency, and trust to build a positive culture. While you may not be able to control the overall company culture, you can potentially control what happens on your team. As I mentioned before, inclusion is key. Treat all of your employees fairly and equally. Having someone other than you to go to will help relieve some of your stress and time and build relationships amongst your other team members. Weekly meetings with remote employees are important in order to maintain connection and ensure they're getting all they need from you and your company. So in my previous life at a dealership, when interviewing new hires, they often asked about how they can grow within the company. Having a well thought out career path can not only help you as a manager, but can help your workers understand how they can grow and move up in the company. Assess their strengths and find opportunities within the company to help them design their path and grow. Challenge your team members to keep them engaged with one another and with the company. Here's an example of our Kimiko career path. This is a great way to show what the possibilities are for our designers while the company grows and adds more people to the mix.
And last but not least, assignment number 5, make it a win 3D. So this is a phrase that we've coined at Kimiko that basically means it's a win for everyone. It's a win for us, it's a win for our clients, it's a win for Kimiko, the company. And so we want to share with you how to think about your problems and come up with solutions that are win 3Ds. Let's talk about shifting your perspective. I'm going to be completely honest. If you have a negative view on remote workers, odds are it probably won't work out. You'll always be setting up scenarios where things will fail just to prove your point, whether consciously or unconsciously. You have to commit for it to work well. You have to be in it to win it and do whatever it takes to make sure that remote situations work. I can tell you from literally decades of experience doing this that having remote employees can work. It is a different way of thinking, and you do have to find the right people. If you want to make the remote scenario work, but you don't want to be the person running it, then find someone on your team who likes to mentor people and is a good project manager. Just because you don't want to do it or you feel like you don't have the time to do it doesn't mean that it can't be done. It's more about finding a viable way and the fact that it doesn't always have to be you doing it. It's time to shift your perspective.
At my previous dealership, when we were trying to hire designers, we struggled with finding candidates that were in the area. This is a major challenge, as some designers wouldn't want to leave their current dealerships, or we weren't able to find designers with the skill set and experience we were looking for. However, if we had been willing to hire for a remote design position, we could have increased the number of potential candidates. This is great, especially for a smaller dealer in a smaller city. Hiring a remote worker could be the answer. This can open up many more resources than what a smaller market can offer. If you already have remote workers, this is not such a foreign concept. And when you have just too many projects and not enough time in the day and need some help, outsourcing can be the solution to all your problems. Maybe you have a designer out on personal leave or have new hires that aren't fully trained yet. It's a very simple way to get that help without having to add more to your plate.
So let's recap the tools from our toolbox. Clear communications and expectations will be your best friend when leading remote teams. Updated technology and software applications will keep you from pulling your hair out. Structure for monitoring productivity while also allowing for some flexibility in how your remote workers do things is a winning combination. Keeping people's best interest at the center of your decisions will typically set you apart from your competitors and reduce your turnover, which in turn saves your company money. And a win from all sides is the ultimate goal. It's easy to set up a win-lose situation, but get creative and think about how you can set it up so that everyone wins. If you've not been successful with remote workers in the past, but you want to try it again, think about how to tweak what was done in the past. Oftentimes, subtle tweaks and evaluating and tweaking again are all you need to do, but you have to be committed to making it work for the long haul.
So now that you've completed all of your assignments, it's a mission possible.
Whoop, whoop.
So we want to thank you so much for attending and taking this time with us. We've truly enjoyed having this time with you and sharing our experiences and tips and tricks. If you experience any challenges or have further questions, please feel free to connect with us.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you.